I wasn't the type of person to scare easily. I had always loved walking through the city at night. There was something about the quiet, the stillness, that felt like the world was pausing just for me. But after that night, I can't even look at a dark street without feeling a chill crawl up my spine. It started on a Friday. I had stayed late at work, finishing up some projects, and by the time I left, the office building was practically deserted. My apartment wasn't far, just a 15-minute walk through the quieter part of town. I figured the fresh air would help me unwind. The first 10 minutes of the walk were uneventful. The streetlights cast a comforting glow, and I had my earbuds in, playing a podcast to keep me company. I was lost in thought, barely paying attention to the empty sidewalks around me, when I noticed something odd in my peripheral vision. Up ahead, under the dim light of a flickering street lamp, there was a man. He was standing perfectly still, facing the opposite side of the street, just outside the pool of light. He wore a suit, not a modern, tailored suit, but something old-fashioned, almost like what you'd see in a 1940s photograph. His posture was rigid, unnaturally so, and even from a distance, I could tell something was off about him. I slowed my pace, my earbuds suddenly feeling too isolating, so I pulled them out. The man hadn't moved. He was just standing there, slightly hunched as though listening for something. I told myself to ignore him. People are strange, especially at night, and it wasn't my business. But as I got closer, something about him drew my attention. His head. It was tilted upward, and although his back was to me, I could see the faintest sliver of his face in the light. His jaw was slack, his mouth wide open as if he were smiling. I crossed the street, keeping my eyes on him. He didn't move, but I could feel his presence like a weight pressing down on my chest. It was as though he knew I was watching him, even though he hadn't turned around. I walked faster, my footsteps echoing on the pavement. As I glanced back over my shoulder, he was gone. Relief washed over me, and I picked up my pace, eager to get home. But then I heard it, a sound like shuffling footsteps. Quick, uneven. I whipped around, and there he was, in the middle of the street. His movements were wrong, jerky, almost like a marionette being dragged forward by invisible strings. He stopped just outside the glow of a streetlight, his face obscured by shadows, but I could still see the outline of that grin. It was too wide, too unnatural, stretching across his face like his skin was being pulled. "Can I help you?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. He didn't answer. He just stood there, swaying slightly, his head twitching as if struggling to stay upright. And then he started to move. He didn't walk, he skipped. It was a slow, deliberate motion, his legs kicking out like he was performing some grotesque dance. My stomach twisted as I watched him, and every instinct screamed at me to run. But I was frozen, rooted in place, unable to look away as he skipped closer and closer. When he was about 10 feet away, I snapped out of it and bolted. My heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else, but behind me I could still make out the sound of his skips, quickening to match my pace. It was like he was mocking me, playing with me, enjoying my fear. I turned the corner and sprinted down another street, nearly tripping over a crack in the pavement. For a moment, the sound stopped and I risked a glance behind me. He was gone again. The street was empty. I stood there, gasping for breath, trying to calm myself. Maybe I'd imagined it, I thought. Maybe it was just some weirdo messing around. But then I felt it, that prickling sensation at the back of my neck, like someone was standing too close. Slowly, I turned around. He was there, standing less than 5 feet away. This time, I got a clear look at his face under the streetlight. His skin was pale, almost gray, and stretched tight over his skull. His eyes were wide, unblinking, and completely devoid of life. But it was the smile that froze me in place. It wasn't just a smile, it was a rictus, a grotesque, too-wide grin that split his face unnaturally, like his cheeks had been torn. For a second, I thought I saw his lips move, as if he was trying to speak. But no words came out, only a low, rasping wheeze, like air escaping from a deflated balloon. The sound was so unnatural, so alien, that it sent shivers down my spine. And then he tilted his head to the side and took a step forward. I didn't think, I just ran. I sprinted down street after street, every shadow stretching and shifting in my peripheral vision. The sound of his skipping footsteps followed me, echoing louder and louder, even when I thought I'd lost him. I turned into an alley, hoping to cut through and reach my building faster, but the moment I entered, I knew I'd made a mistake. The alley was pitch black, and the air felt colder, heavier. I stopped, gasping for breath, and listened. Nothing, just silence. No footsteps, no wheezing. But then I saw him. He was standing at the mouth of the alley, silhouetted by the distant streetlight. His grin seemed even wider now, his head cocked at an unnatural angle. He didn't move, he just stood there as if daring me to try to escape. My chest tightened. I backed away slowly, my hand reaching for the wall to steady myself, but my fingers brushed against something wet. I recoiled, glancing down to see dark streaks on the brick, blood smeared like something had been dragged. That was when he moved again. He didn't skip this time. He sprinted, closing the distance between us faster than I thought possible. I screamed, turned and ran, barreling through the alley, barely dodging piles of trash and debris. When I reached the other side, I didn't stop running until I was inside my apartment, slamming the door shut behind me. I locked every bolt, shoved a chair under the handle, and collapsed on the floor, shaking. My ears were ringing and my throat burned from gasping for air. For hours, I sat there, staring at the door, expecting to hear those footsteps again. But they never came. The next morning, I told myself it was over, that he was gone. But even now, months later, I feel like he's still there, watching. Sometimes I catch a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye, or hear the faint echo of those skipping footsteps, and when I do, I know he's still smiling.
Thank you for watching this video by Sanctum Obscura. If you enjoyed unraveling the darkness with us, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay curious, stay brave, and remember, some mysteries are better left in the shadows. See you next time.